Welcome back to the Daily Dope Show. And I'm your host, Brando, the Weed Commando. And we're going to the Northern Mariana Islands. And actually, we're going to Tom Angel over at Marijuana Moment. This one's in Forbes. With the governor signing marijuana legalization bill, making history in a U.S. territory. With the governor's signature on Friday, the latest place to legalize marijuana in the U.S. isn't a state. It's a Commonwealth of the Northern Mariana Islands, a tiny Pacific territory with a population of just over 50,000. Under the new law signed by Governor Ralph Torres, Republican, adults 21 years of age will be able to legally possess up to 1 ounce of marijuana as well as infused products and extracts. Regulations will issue licenses for cannabis producers, testing facilities, processors, retailers, wholesalers, and lounges. Home cultivation of a small number of plants will be allowed. CNMI is the first place in the U.S. to launch a commercial cannabis legalization system through an act of lawmakers as opposed to voters with a ballot initiative. Vermont legislators passed a bill to end marijuana prohibition this year, but it only allows for possession and home cultivation, not legal sales. So I don't know if I would characterize that as ending prohibition if you're not allowed to sell it. We're really, let me just take a break from the reading for 1 second to emphasize my, I guess, tired old dog that I'm over here beating on about how when the legislator does the legalizing, especially when they do the regulation package, you're gonna get shit. It's gonna be a handoff to a few moneyed interest, and what we call that in the marijuana legalization world is the corporate takeover. When we say the corporate takeover, we're not literally talking about Coca-Cola coming in and taking over. We're talking about people that are connected to the government or have lobbied for marijuana legalization just because they wanted to do, to be like a mini monopoly. And this is like, you can see it happening all the time. Like John Boehner popping in, all of a sudden thinks smoking marijuana is okay, saying shit like that. It's because he's gonna make money off it in this corporate takeover kind of sense. So when I seen this, the first thing I thought of was, well, of course, somebody came in and greased the skids. And when I say grease the skids, it's almost like a ALEC. I don't know if you're watching this show and if you're familiar with politics. I pay attention to politics quite a bit. Like, I pretty much know what the hell's going on. I'm pretty informed, and if you don't think I am, let me know why. I know about ALEC. I know that they rubber stamp legislation for all kinds of right-wing bullshit and just pass it out to legislators around the country, and they just basically fill in their names and sign the shit at the end of the day and make laws like that. Well, apparently we have like a ALEC type situation going on with this legalizing marijuana, not ending prohibition. Now, the Vermont thing was kind of a legalization. It was more of a decriminalizing marijuana on a statewide level with specific details as to exactly what was decriminalized. So I wouldn't classify that as ending marijuana prohibition. Because the first thing you would do if you end marijuana prohibition is you're saying, since it's not prohibited, then why would there be any problem with somebody setting up a popsicle stand and selling some of it? Prohibition says, no, there's still limits, laws, things that you could do that you could go to jail for. It's still on some kind of a thing like a schedule for a controlled scheduling system, which every state has their own independent CSA, as well as the federal government. So we all know that that's what's going on. But the bottom line is these people, whoever they are, go to places that are vulnerable, look like they might there's a good chance that legalization could happen there through the legislator. That's a big important part of this. So they go through the legislator with their package of bills that we've seen roll out in places like Arkansas for the medical marijuana, Michigan for the medical marijuana, um, recreational marijuana. They're trying to roll this out in New Jersey to kind of look like this package of bills that has the license packaging for all the things that you need to have, like the processors, the growers, the transporters, the testing facilities, and of course the dispensaries. Anyway, that's, just my inside the crazy mind of Brando, the weed commando. That's kind of what I think's going on, is that people that obviously want to expand their marijuana empire worldwide, well, they have this ALEC type thing going on where they go to different legislators where they see a vulnerability and they do this. And this is just what I think is going on here. I'm not saying that I have some kind of proof of this, but I mean, it's getting obvious, man. Like, almost all these regulation packages are identical. But let's get into that. Let's read the rest of this article. I don't want to spend too much more time on it. The territory is also the first U.S. jurisdiction to go from having cannabis totally illegal to allowing recreational use without first having a medical marijuana program. Again, Vermont could have been that, but they didn't get their regulation package together in 2017 or 2018. 2017, they finally legalized, couldn't get a package done before the legislature end. They had a package, but it wasn't agreed on, and the governor wouldn't sign it. Same thing happened in early 2018, so they kind of lost that foot race. And then there was also a couple other people like Connecticut and Maryland that was trying to do the same thing. Legislature ended. They didn't do it. And now we have New Jersey, might do it, but they didn't do it yet, and now these guys beat them, so they're the first. All right, anyway, I'm proud of our CNMI leadership, citizens, and national organizations for working together to thoughtfully develop and approve a progressive piece of legislation that will improve the quality of life for so many, said Lawrence J. Dapanchil, co-founder of the advocacy group Sensible CNMI. Together, he said, we are telling the world that we do not feel that our citizens should be stigmatized and criminalized for the responsible use, adult use of cannabis, that they should no longer be denied access to this life-saving medicine. After a series of back-and-forth moves between CNMI's House and Senate earlier this year, lawmakers finally sent the cannabis bill to Tory's desk last month. It was unclear if the governor was going to sign or veto the legislation. He had previously expressed concerns about the public safety implications of legalizing marijuana. And now, again, I'm thinking this tit for tat was just the regulators coming in with the package and smoothing over any kind of, they can make adjustments in the package when you have a Republican, leader that has to ultimately sign it at the end of the day. We've seen that happen time and time again where they're like, oh, he might not sign it if it's like this and that, or he might veto it or whatever, like we've seen in Maine. But at the end of the day here, I think nobody made too much of a fuss or noise about it, because everybody was happy with what the regulators brought to the table. And again, man, I'm just speculating, so I don't know. Maybe I'm just crazy in a conspiracy theory kind of way on this whole marijuana legalization thing. But I mean, I'm starting to see a pattern, guys, and it's not a coincidence. Somebody might argue against it and say, well, Brando, it just might be that these regulations are the best possible regulations out of what people looked at, out of all the regulations that have been tried so far. Because there's 30 states that have medical marijuana regulations in America, and worldwide there's several countries and other smaller states that have it. Maybe we've looked at everything, and maybe they looked at everything and they had their experts hammer out like a platform that looked like the best possible regulation package. And what I say to that is bullshit. Nothing is ever made by a legislator that is the best possible thing. I don't care what I'm just not going to be convinced of that. I'm the guy that is just like to the point of cynicism when it comes to government. I think it's just a big show. It's just a big kabuki theater. And the fact that they're letting us have certain things from time to time that you might later on consider a human right, like not be a slave or have equal access to the voting booth, just stuff like that we've seen that we've had to fight for. Oh, this is America, land of the free, home of the brave, but here we are fighting for the right to smoke a fucking joint. And meanwhile, we're haggling over regulations to sell it with basically people that want to monopolize it. And if you think I'm crazy for jumping to these conclusions, then I don't know why you're still watching my channel, because it's kind of the overall theme. Anyway, but in the end, Torres decided to hold a signing ceremony to highlight his decision to enact the far-reaching cannabis reform. Quote, "Today our people made history. We took a stand to legalize marijuana in CNMI for recreational, medical, and commercial use." And there he is signing it. Here's some more pictures of him. I don't really keep up with CNMI's politics or whatever, so I don't know much about him or the island or what their policies are or how they govern their island. But I'm guessing that this is one of those places like Guam and other places that we call American territories. That we basically have them for military strategic positioning in, outside of the China seas there, just to have a little bit of something going on over here in the Marianas. It might just be something to do with military strategy. But for one reason or another, we have this territory, and that's not it. I was like, wait, they don't have... Do they have pyramids like that there? Maybe. Who knows? But I can't wait to someday make my way out there to check it out. Is this it? No. Yeah, I don't know much about it. Northern Mariana Islands. Here's I wish people would make their images a little bigger. Okay, so part of the Mariana Islands is Guam. I didn't know that. And I think the capital is Saipan. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. I don't know if there is a capital. But sounds good. I've seen a lot of people online talk about, oh yeah, I'm going to get me a ticket and go visit. While signing the overall bill into law, Tories did use an inline item veto powers to cancel some provisions of the proposal, including one to allow the government entity to be a license to grow cannabis, as well as a provision requiring recreational consumers to obtain $5 permits. Well, thank you for that, because both of those provisions sounded like completely like a scam. Like, okay, now we're just going to cut out the middleman and the whole revolving door theory of corruption and just be like, okay, a government entity can straight up run a weed business. I mean, yeah, cross that one out if you can. And making everybody that wants to be a marijuana consumer buy a fucking permit, that's not ending prohibition at all. Let's go back to the different terminology. There's ending prohibition, there's legalizing marijuana, and then there's decriminalization. None of those would involve you having to have some kind of a permit that you have to buy. And I'm guessing you're going to have it like an ID card that says you can... Nah, come on. No. Legalization supporters hope that the tiny territories move will have big implications for the rest of the country. I mean, if California can't swing that bat, I don't think some little island out in the middle of nowhere is gonna. But hey, what can you say? If those, like I said, those smoky backroom policy writers get their way here, maybe they can punch a hole in Alabama or something. Quote, this is the first legislatively enacted law in the U.S. that taxes and regulates marijuana for adults' use, but it will be far from the last. Karen O'Keefe, State Policies Director for the Marijuana Policy Project, said in an interview, quote, New Jersey could follow suit within weeks, and as many as 5 more state legislators could do so within the next year. Public support for legalizing marijuana is strong and growing, and elected officials are increasingly getting the message. Other advocates believe the building momentum will add to the pressure on the federal government to modernize its approach to cannabis. God, something should. The leadership and common sense displayed by the elected officials of CNMI is yet another pivotal crack in the wall of prohibition, political director Justin Streckel said. Quote, it's time for Congress to take note of this new historic event and move to allow states and territories to set their own policies by removing cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act. That's what we want. Voters in several states will consider marijuana questions in November. Michigan and North Dakota have recreational measures on the ballot, while Missouri and Utah will decide on medical cannabis proposals. Meanwhile, Torres and other officials will get to work appointing a regulatory commission to implement CNMI's new legalization law, and he wants lawmakers to pass separate companion legislation to, quote, strengthen this bill for our community's public safety and public health, he said in a signing statement. The follow-up proposal is likely to address cannabis tax rates and fees, Sensible CNMI's Gary Pelosius Hemley said. So, and again, what it does do is it legalizes basically personal amounts of marijuana, but it only allows cultivation of a small number of plants, which is better than no cultivation. New Jersey, and I think I've said all I have to say about this story. So congratulations, Northern Mariana Islands. And again, one more time, everyone, this is not a partisan issue. This guy sitting right here signing this marijuana legalization, all across the board, legalization, taxing, regulating. This guy's a Republican right here. Last time I checked, the whole Northern Mariana Islands has been Republican run for quite some time. There hasn't been like a changing of the guard. And then, like I said, also it's almost like a military base, the whole island system. So I don't know. It's hard to imagine that, you can think of like Norfolk and Quantico and that little region there where there's like all that military shit going on. Do you think they would legalize marijuana with a Republican governor sitting there? Probably never. Probably not even with a Democrat, with a full stack of Democrats all around North Carolina and Virginia and Maryland, all the way up the coast. But here it is, again, a Republican, just like in Vermont, signing a legalizing marijuana bill. Now, we've seen the guy in Maine. He could have been the first Republican to sign a legalizing marijuana bill. He signed it eventually because he tried to veto it in the regulation package. I'm specifically talking about selling marijuana. That's something that no matter how you try to end prohibition, Republicans, for some reason, think that selling marijuana is almost as bad as like the original sin by Eve in the Garden of Eden and shit. Like you're literally gonna take a poison apple from a snake or something. Like selling weed to somebody. Like, come on. Enough of this. But there you go. Again, further proven that you can get this done even with Republicans. And I don't know, all my conspiracy theories aside, best of luck to you guys out there in the Mariana Islands. Have a good one, guys. Hit the subscribe button. Make sure you're subscribed.